When it comes to large flagship three-row luxury SUVs, the BMW brand was a little bit behind. The company finally entered the space with the very large BMW X7 back in 2019, and when I first had a chance to drive the vehicle, I was blown away. It essentially was the best driving three-row large luxury SUV that money can buy. Now, since that time frame, there have been a lot of new competition entering the space, which is why for 2023, we're seeing a fully revised 2023 X7. As you can see, this week, BMW has loaned me this X7 painted in Brooklyn gray with the base xDrive40i, which means we have a 3-liter turbocharged inline-6 electrified with a mild hybrid system and making about 375 horsepower. And you can see from the design, it got the same front fascia from the also recently redone BMW 7 Series. So if you guys have been looking for a large 3-row luxury SUV, but you want something that also has a little bit more spunk when you actually get behind the wheel, how does the revised 2023 X7 stack up? Stay tuned to find out. Now, before we start talking about the exterior styling changes, and trust me, they are pretty significant for 2023, let me go ahead and pop the hood and show you guys what's powering this thing. Now, BMW offers a choice of 3 different engines here in the US. This right here is actually the base motor. Now, there isn't really too much that's basic about this engine. This is the same B58 twin power, single turbo, inline 6-cylinder that we know and love from BMWs. It's also been upgraded this year with a 48-volt mild hybrid system, which means this 3-liter inline 6 now develops 375 horsepower, and when it's accepting the assistance of the 48-volt system, it delivers up to 398 pound-feet of torque. That's a pretty heady 40 horsepower increase and like over 50 more pound-feet of torque versus the pre-refreshed model, so that's a nice healthy jump. You only get one transmission choice. It's an 8-speed ZF torque converter automatic. xDrive all-wheel drive is going to be standard. This vehicle is built off of a rear drive cluster architecture, the same one that underpins the BMW X5. And fuel economy is actually pretty impressive considering the size of this vehicle. It's rated to get up to 21 in the city and 25 on the highway. Premium gas is going to be required, of course. With that large 20+ gallon gas tank, you're looking at over 450 miles of range on a full tank. Now, BMW also says performance should be around 5.6 seconds, 0 to 60. And if you guys need to tow, this is also a really good tow vehicle. It'll tow a maximum of 7,500 pounds. As this one sits here, it weighs in at around 5,400 pounds. Keep in mind, there are also 2 V8 versions, the M60i, which has up to 523 horsepower, and then the Alpina, which also got a boost to 631 horsepower. But let's go ahead and close up the hood and talk about the exterior styling. Now, as you can see, how could you guys not notice the front fascia? This is the same front end that we saw on the new BMW 7 Series, and some of you either love or hate the design. I actually prefer the pre-refreshed model in terms of the look. I just don't love the way this looks. I also am really glad that BMW isn't carrying over this design theme on the revised X5 and X6, which I'll eventually show you guys a full review on that. You can see my tester has the M Sport package and the extended Shadowline package, so you can see the twin kidneys are blacked out. There's active grille shutters. I also really like it with the Brooklyn gray. You can see the headlights. My tester is missing the crystallized headlights, where the LED daytime running light and turn signal would be a crystal effect. Down here you can see it's split. It's divorced from the daytime running light where you have an LED low and high beam. No fog lights, it appears, but I believe there are some cornering lights. BMW's full LED headlights are standard. You can see the black extended Shadowline trim also includes more blacked out trim down here, along with the sensor for the radar cruise control and the parking sensors. Overall, the vehicle certainly still looks premium, but I still think I prefer the pre-refreshed front fascia as opposed to this new version. But moving around the side profile, you can see the X7 size is a little bit deceiving because this is built on the cluster architecture, and it's a big vehicle. At 203.6 inches long, this is about 10 inches longer versus the X5. So you really are gonna feel that in the interior space. Its wheelbase is around 122 inches long. This is about as big as you can get for a crossover type large luxury SUV. Obviously, if you're looking at a Yukon or an Escalade, that's going to be another 10 inches longer versus this vehicle. Now you can see my tester has an optional 22-inch wheel. You can see massive design. It's a newly designed wheel with the M Sport brakes. You can see it has upgraded twin or 4-piston calipers. And then the tire size is 270/540 R22 in the front. These are run flat tires, Pirelli run flat tires. The rears are fatter, they're 315, so you have a staggered wheel setup. You can see all X7s also come with an adaptive air suspension, which can raise and lower the ground clearance almost 2 inches. This is with it in its normal setting. You can see moving around the rest of the side profile, it's a boxy shape. I mean, it pretty much just looks like a supersized X5 here. It has that signature kind of, almost looks like a hockey puck in the side sill. I like how it's blacked out. Of course, when you guys go for the Shadowline package, along with the window trim over here, you can see the mirrors, they electrically fold in. They have an integrated turn signal. And then you can see my tester also has a big panoramic glass roof, which actually has a roof panel over the third row, which is nice. And then you also have the blacked out roof rails if you guys want to put a roof rack or something, or a roof basket on top of the vehicle. Now, moving around the rear, you can see the rear got a more subtle upgrade, which it didn't really need changes. I always thought that the X7 was a handsome vehicle, especially from the back. You can see you have a slightly tweaked taillight design where it's a full LED taillight. I'm surprised that chrome trim in the center of the tailgate isn't actually blacked out. Down here you can see you have dual exhaust outlets, which I believe on the V8 you'll get a quad outlet exhaust system that's also blacked out, which is nice. And then what I like about the X7 is, just like a Range Rover, for example, it has a split design to the tailgate, which means if you open this up and you have a bunch of stuff in here, it's not going to roll out and fall onto the ground. Push a separate button here that's going to lower down that lower portion of the tailgate. And you can see here, this is the problem with the X7. If you guys need to regularly carry a bunch of people and their stuff, you only have 12.8 cubic feet of storage space with the third row seat up. So that's pretty small. It is well carpeted back here. You have a pretty deep underfloor storage area over there, which is nice. But you can see if you want to fold down the third row seat, you can do that by basically just pushing this button over here, which it's power folding. So you can see once I push that, it actually can lower the second row, which is also power folding, and lower the third row. So you can see I have to push one button first. That lowers all the rows of seats. You can see that side is only lowering that for some reason, but you can also just hit a max button here, which if you hit that button, it actually will lower all the seats, but for some reason it's not wanting to work. But anyways, in terms of cargo space, when that seat is folded down, you can see it takes a second. So this is where it's kind of finicky. I would just prefer something a little bit simpler. But when you fold down the third row, you can see that will give you a maximum of 48 cubic feet. And then if you fold down the second row, BMW says you have a total of 90 cubic feet. Now, 90 cubic feet is actually a pretty good amount, although I was just in something like the Toyota Grand Highlander, which will spawn a Lexus version that offered around 98 cubic feet of total space. So that's definitely a little bit more, but this is also still pretty good as well. I can't remember off the top of my head what the GLS Mercedes has, but this is going to be less spaces, which you're going to find in something like the Escalade, the Navigator, and the GMC Yukon. So now let's go ahead and move on to the interior of the revised X7. So if you guys don't like the exterior, you're gonna be spending most of your time inside, which this vehicle did get upgrades. Before we do that, let's go ahead and take a look at the key fob. You can see this is BMW's newest fob. It is a fairly large and heavy feeling fob. I mean, it feels really well made. It has your usual buttons to lock, to unlock, to open up the tailgate, to panic, use the panic alarm. And then there's also a remote start. If you triple tap the lock button here in sequence, it should also remote start the vehicle. You can also have access to it through your phone on the app as well, which you can also use your phone as a key. Now you can see door handles are traditional, unlike some other modern BMWs with the pop-up handles. You can see, just touch that little ridge area here that locks the door, electric folds the mirrors. This vehicle also has the walk-away unlock and lock feature if you have it set on, which is kind of a nice touch, where if you walk up to the vehicle with the key, it'll automatically lock or unlock the door for you if you guys walk away from it as well. But you can see my tester with the Brooklyn Gray has the black full merino upgraded leather interior. Now you can see I personally wouldn't go for a black interior. You can also go for like a gray, an oyster, several different hues of brown. It would look really good with the gray exterior. BMW sadly doesn't offer their red interior on the X7. I hope they eventually change that, but you can see with the upgraded leather, you can see you've got leather stitching on the door panels here with the contrasting stitching. You have some nice aluminum trim, nice glossy wood, although most people are now going to a matte finish wood. And then my tester just has the Harman Kardon audio system upgrade, not the Bowers & Wilkins for $3,400. If you're an audiophile, I'd highly recommend that. The Harman Kardon is fine, but it's not quite as nice as the Bowers. And you can see down here, it's a soft touch material, nice storage compartment here. And then you can see with the M Sport package, you have the alloy pedals, the alloy side sills, and then these seats, they adjust, I believe, in 20 different ways. and you can also squeeze the bolsters. My Tester is missing massaging seats, but you do have 2-person memory on both the front seat and on the front passenger seat, and these seats are heated and ventilated. They are comfortable, they're supportive, but I'd highly recommend going for the massage seats, especially if you're gonna be spending this kind of money anyways. Now, as I get in, you can see the step-in height is nice and high, although it kind of gives you that easy step-in height that you like with an SUV. And then you can see here, it doesn't have the feature where the doors will automatically open and close for you like in the 7 Series, but it does have the soft close feature, so you just have to click the door, it'll shut the door for you automatically. And then if you slam it, the door has a nice solid sounding thunk. Remember, this is built on the cluster architecture. Now, start-stop button is down here by the shifter, which as you can see, it's the new shifter. Because it has the 48-volt mild hybrid system, the starter noise is not traditional. It kind of just whirs to life like it's an electric, like a hybrid vehicle. But once you start the vehicle up, what surprised me actually is put it into sport mode here. For a base engine, it actually makes a pretty nice sound. BMW does an amazing inline 6, so it doesn't surprise me that this, again, sounds fantastic. Now you can see the steering wheel. It's a power tilt and telescoping steering wheel. It's got paddles on the wheel. It's got leather over the airbag cover. It's a big, meaty, chunky steering wheel with a 3-spoke design. Not flat bottom, but again, this is part of the M Sport package, and it just gives you kind of that, you know, ultimate driving feel that you get from other BMWs. You have leather with real stitching on the upper portion here, more of that glossy wood, which some of you may want to change out for the aluminum or for the matte wood. And then you can see the dashboard has been redone where you have these new vents where it has these kind of like joystick here to control the airflow. You can also twist that will close the vent for you. You can do that for each individual vent. There's also this new kind of LED lighting accent. There's also really beautiful ambient lighting in this vehicle where this right here is also lit up. It shows X7. I think BMW also does that in the new X5, which is nice. Your headlight controls are down here. And then you have controls here where you can adjust the way this looks over here, which you can also manipulate by changing the drive modes. You can see there's a Comfort, there's an Eco Pro, which turns blue, and then there's the Sport, which turns red. I don't particularly love the new instrument panel and the way it looks, but you can kind of push a button over here, and you can also kind of change the way this looks, where you can put your driver assistance content. You can also put your map and GPS function, which if you go here, this will actually put the map preview, which is again pretty nice that BMW gives you that customization, but I still think I prefer Audi system with their Google Earth. You can see over here, there's iDrive 8, which now has a 14.9-inch screen over here in the center. It has wireless Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. You can see there's the CarPlay function. It looks good. It's very quick and snappy, and the graphics look fantastic. The climate control is now in the screen here, which is one of my biggest gripes with iDrive 7. So you can see here, if I want to access the cooled seat, I can tap that over there. This will bring me to the climate control menu, which you can also tap via center right here. This sometimes took a little bit too long to populate when I first start the vehicle up, especially if it's a hot or a cold day. You can see I've got the cooled seat controls. There's your passenger seat controls. I think people just prefer the hard buttons to access the seat controls. That's something BMW used to do. Along with your different preset buttons, they just got rid of that to kind of create a more minimalistic design, which I understand why. It's just created a system here that's a little bit more intimidating and a little bit more cumbersome to use at times. You also have the voice commands if you guys don't want to fiddle around with the screen. When I put the car into reverse, you can see there's your full top-down 360 camera, which BMW does a really good job with their camera views. It also allows you to pull up like a panoramic view monitor. It has parking sensors front and rear. It has a 3D view if you'd like, where you can kind of scroll around the vehicle, which is a nice touch. It even looks like it almost matches the exact car that my Tester actually is in the screen here versus what it actually is in real life, which is nice. The one thing I also don't like is this new shifter. This is the new shifter where it's basically like this little toggle. You push it up to go to reverse, kick it back to go to drive. There's also a sport mode. Push this P to go to park. I prefer the older shifter because you used to be able to get a crystal shifter if you guys had the executive package. Obviously, you can't do that now because of this little black toggle. It just looks more minimalistic, but I preferred the other electronic shifter, which was kind of more of a shifter. You can see iDrive 8 also allows you to use the rotary controller here, but you can also use the touchscreen. You can also use voice commands. The software in it is fine. I just want more hard buttons. So like, what was wrong with having a heated seat control button over here or a massage button over here, which I believe if you have that, there actually will be a massage button over here. The window controls do feel pretty high quality. And I also like how you can also open and close the shades. It's one touch for all four, which is definitely nice. And then over here you can see the seats, like I said earlier, comfortable, supportive, they look great. You have adjustments right here for your air suspension as well, and then you have some shortcut buttons for the iDrive. And then there's a nice padded center console. Open this up, you can see it's pretty deep. There's a USB-C charging port. And then if you open this up, there's another USB-A, a wireless phone charger, and then a little bit more storage over here. This would just, not particularly to my taste, but it does look nice with the black interior. You can see my tester also has the Alcantara headliner, which is an extra charge. You have LED map lighting, and then you can see here, my tester is missing the executive package, which would include the Sky Lounge LED lighting in here. Without it, you still have a panoramic glass roof, which has this kind of sunshade that opens and closes. You can also open this completely, or you can tilt it, which is nice. It looks good with the Alcantara headliner, which is also on the A pillar and D pillar. But overall, you can see with the heads-up display, there's a lot of tech in this car, but it's missing a digital camera review mirror. BMW doesn't do that. And then I would just like to see them add back some heated and cooled seat control buttons instead of having them buried into the screen. But overall, nice interior. It feels spacious, it feels roomy, and it definitely feels like very high quality. And for those of you who are familiar with BMW interiors, you're gonna kind of feel right at home in this car. Moving to the back seat, you can see this is going to be a family vehicle, so you probably are hoping that it has a lot of space in the second and then third row. Now you can see here, my tester does not have the captain's chairs. For I believe like an extra 800 bucks, BMW will get rid of the center seat and give you a console and give you 2 captain's chairs, which will reduce the seating capacity to 6. My tester here will seat 7 because there's 3 across here. There's 2 in the third row, which the third row is standard. Now you can see these seats are also power reclining, and they also power fold, and they also give the ability to power move, so you can get into the third row. You can see here's the controls right here to recline the seat. You can also move it forward and back. The materials back here still has beautiful leather stitching with the contrasting stitching. Nice padded armrest. It's still soft touch down here with a nice amount of storage. You can also open and close the shades by pushing this button over here, which basically allows you to open, and the third row you can see is also a power retractable shade. And then if you want, you can also lower and open up this peasant shade or privacy shade on each of the door panels, you can see. So that's definitely a nice touch. Not sure why that's not going automatic. It's probably because the door is open. But BMW says you have around 37.8 inches of legroom back here, which is a fairly good amount. Getting back here and shutting the door, you can see this is with the seat all the way back. This is with the seat slid forward a little bit to give third row passengers a little bit more space. But you can see here, when you have it in this position, there's definitely not as much space. You feel a little bit cramped back here. So I would do is I would move this seat back and then also recline. Now you can see this is where you get, I believe, the full 37.6 inches of legroom, which is a good amount. You do have 4-zone climate control in this vehicle. BMW actually says you can get up to 5 zones, so the third row can get its own climate control function. There's 3-level heated seats. My tester is missing the cooled seat function, which I don't believe they offer actually on the X7. I'll have to double check that. But you can see you have rear seat air vents. This would be a little bit of storage here where if you had a tablet installed, you have a USB-C charging port over there, 2 more USB-Cs down here along with a power outlet. I also like how the headrests have these really nice soft pillows back here, and you have this nice kind of soft quilted full merino leather, which is great. You have an armrest that folds down, gives you more storage over here, along with dual cup holders. In addition to cup holders here, you can see there is some ambient lighting back here in the third row area. And then once you're back here, you can see it's great for, you know, if you guys have to have 4 adults in this vehicle, it's certainly going to give you that kind of space that you're looking for. But let's go ahead and hop into the third row, which obviously with the bench seat, you can't actually get back there unless you fold the seat out of the way. Now, if you flip this switch here, this is going to fold the seat down for maximum cargo. What you have to do is actually hit the button over here. Just kind of tap it once. You can see the front seat starts to move out of the way, and then this seat will start to move out of the way electrically. Now, you do have to wait for it to do so, although it is fairly quick, but it is not as fast, obviously, as a manual seat, so kind of keep that in mind. I don't have the legroom figures back here into the third row area, but you can see that is with the seat all the way back. Now, with the seat all the way back here, can I sit back here? The answer is not really. I'm literally, my knees are jammed up against this seat back, so I would have to ask this passenger here to move this seat up a little bit because this is just completely unacceptable. Oh God, and I'm only 5'7", keep that in mind. Now in terms of the space, you can see headroom is actually pretty decent. My head's not touching the roof, but if you're over 6 feet, it might. You can see over here, there's this nice sunshade that kind of, you can also close up if you'd like to close up, if you need to get some shade. You can see my tester actually does have the 5-zone climate, and you can see there are heated seats back here in the third row. This is part of an extra charge. I think BMW was one of the first to do heated seats in the third row. You do have rear seat air vents as well, You have some nice padded armrest over here with some ambient lighting. And then, as you can see here, with this seat slid forward, let me actually put it back. Hopefully it doesn't crush my feet so I can show you guys what the space is like. So actually you'll hear it latch when it, yep, and then it'll come back a little bit, but please don't crush my knees. Okay, so this is with the seat slid forward a little bit. And while I don't have the final legroom figures in the third row, BMW doesn't give that to you, I can sit back here as somebody that's 5'7", but when you slide it all the way back, you can see there isn't enough space for my legs, so kind of keep that in mind. Other competitors from the American brands simply offer more space in the third row for actual adults. So it's been nearly 4 years since I've been behind the wheel of BMW's flagship SUV, and while it did take the company a long time to enter this space, boy was it worth the wait, because this vehicle has become a pretty big seller for BMW. It is the second best-selling luxury SUV, three-row flagship luxury SUV in the US, and the updates that BMW has made have only improved it even more. In terms of the exterior styling, that's always debatable, but I actually haven't had a chance to drive the base six-cylinder engine for this vehicle, and I've never 0 to 60 tested it. So BMW claims 5.6 seconds with this 375 horsepower 3-liter twin-power turbo inline-six. Now it's also electrified, so nearly 400 pound-feet of torque. So we've got it in sport mode, it's got launch control, and let's see what we can get. These engines are always overachievers. Sounds good too. All right, 5.4 seconds. That's a smidge faster than BMW's claim of 5.6 seconds. And I have to say, it is very impressive considering the sound this makes, the fact that this is the base engine, the fact that it weighs 5,400 pounds, which is just incredible. That beeping you're hearing is the car. I'm not sure what it's doing, but it's kind of getting on my nerves. I need to figure out how to turn that off. But overall, it still feels like a very fun, very nimble car. And that's kind of what the beauty about BMW powertrains and chassis. They always feel a little bit smaller than their numbers would suggest. But let's go ahead and try right here what this acceleration would be like. This time I'm not going to brake torque it, I'm just going to floor it. Definitely doesn't feel as fast when you don't. Ooh, that sound, I like the noise. I love BMW's inline-six. 6.1 there, and that time is about a half a second slower than BMW's claim. But again, I'm going more slightly uphill and I'm not brake torquing it there. Most people won't launch this car, so in the real world, you're gonna be getting around 6 seconds 0 to 60, which is gonna be plenty of power for most. I mean, this is actually faster than the last Cadillac Escalade with its 6.2-liter V8 that I tested. So very impressive performance, especially considering the fact that you can get a V8, 2 different V8s with 2 different power levels. So it really shows you how impressive that BMW tends to be with their powertrain options. Now, in terms of just the transmission, this is the 8-speed ZF automatic. It's got paddles on the wheel. If you start messing with the paddles, they are pretty responsive, actually. It makes a little burble and crackle from the exhaust. I mean, this kind of playfulness, this engagingness is not what I typically find in the full-size 3-row flagship luxury segment. This car essentially just feels like a bigger X5, and that's what I love about the X7, and that's probably why it's been doing so well, because if you love driving, but you need the extra space the X7 gives you, that third row of seats, I mean, this car is about almost 10 inches longer than an X5. But you know what? I don't really feel it that much in the driving dynamics. BMW has done a really good job of masking the weight, masking the size, and it's just incredible to me what this company is capable of doing. Put your foot down here. You can feel it's a rear drive bias car because it sends more power to the back. Really fun. Seriously, I like the way this base engine feels. I don't typically care for the base engine, but BMW's inline-six has always been an overachieving kind of engine, and that's the beauty about this car, is it feels a lot stronger than its numbers would suggest. And it kind of makes me wonder, do you even bother to need to get the V8 when you guys go for this car? But let's try it again here. We'll brake torque it, launch it. Oh yes. Love that. 5.5 there. So again, 5.4, 5.5 with launch control. That's plenty of performance, and I believe it's only about a half a second slower versus the pre-refresh model's V8, the xDrive40i, and that had around 456 horsepower. I actually had the rear step out a little bit. Oh, music to my ears. But let's go ahead and switch the drive mode select here into comfort, because most people are going to drive this vehicle like an SUV, a family vehicle. And BMW has retuned the suspension this year. It's got adaptive air suspension, which is standard. The ride quality is amazing. Even though I'm riding on these 22-inch wheels, it rides really comfortably. It handles really nice still, but also it has that dual personality. When you put it into comfort mode, it just glides. It glides over imperfections, and when it's on smooth pavement, you've got this excellent ride quality. It's so quiet in here. The engine quiets down when you have it in comfort mode. The steering gets a little bit lighter, but it's always direct. It's always precise. Visibility out of the X7 is also good. I can see out of the front, the sides very well. The rear also, the rear visibility is good, although I wish BMW would offer a digital camera rear view mirror. That's something that the Germans just are against. But in a vehicle like this, let's say if you had 7 passengers in the vehicle, tall passengers, or a bunch of crap with stuff going up to the roof, you're not gonna be able to see out of the back window. So that's kind of a reason to have that. And then the seats are also comfortable. My Tester is missing the massage function, but they are heated and ventilated. This is not the interior color that I would go for, especially with this gray. You can't get it with red interior. You can get it with like 3 different variations of brown though, which I probably would do. But it just constantly reminds you this is a luxury vehicle, and that's kind of the beauty about the X7 is it just drives like a slightly bigger X5. Does it feel like the SUV of 7 Series? Yes and no. I mean, the 7 Series, the new one in general, has gotten so tech heavy. And this new X7, you know, borrows some of that tech. I love the new xDrive40i system. I love how big the screen looks. I don't love how BMW got rid of some of the actual controls that were hard buttons. For example, like the climate functions are now on the screen, which takes a little bit of getting used to. But if you're the owner of this car, you should get used to it pretty quick. And then in terms of the fuel efficiency, in my week's worth of testing, I averaged around 19 mpg in mostly city driving. On the highway, this powertrain, however, will deliver the goods. I got 26 miles to the gallon on the highway, and when you combine it with the large gas tank, you're looking at over 450 miles on a full tank. That's excellent. Even though this car is just a mild hybrid, it's not a full hybrid, or BMW doesn't offer a plug-in hybrid on this vehicle, you notice constantly that the engines that BMW produces are more efficient than the numbers would suggest, and that's kind of the beauty about this car is it's more powerful than the numbers suggest, and it's also more fuel efficient than the numbers would suggest. And it makes me wonder, the inline 6 is probably the engine to get unless you plan to do a lot of towing. This delivers smooth, effortless, linear power that sounds good, that's very fuel efficient when you want it to be. And it's also just very comfortable, but very sporty as well when you want it to be. So there's a reason why the X7 has really grown in popularity, and I'm not surprised that this is now the 2nd best-selling SUV in the 3-row large luxury space. So after spending a full week with the fully revised 2023 BMW X7, I mean, basically all the things that I liked about the X7 about 4 years ago are pretty much still here. I think this is one of the more attractive looking vehicles, although I still prefer the pre-refresh model as opposed to this version. The engine really surprised me. For a base engine, it offers plenty of power, plenty of performance, and really good fuel efficiency. And that's probably one of the reasons why this version here with the 6-cylinder sells really well, because it's smooth, it makes a nice sound, and it has enough power for most drivers unless you're going to be constantly towing all the time. In terms of the handling, this again just drives like a supersized X5, which doesn't even feel that much bigger than an X5. So if you want a driver's SUV that also is a flagship luxury SUV that can carry 3 or 7 people, this is the one you're going to want to be looking at, because as you guys know, Porsche is the other driver's SUV, but they don't offer a Cayenne with 3 rows of seating, and then the X7, as you can see, does. Now, in terms of my gripes, I don't particularly love the new infotainment system. Now, iDrive8 has some upgrades over the previous generation, but where BMW went backwards is the fact that they took away some hard buttons for like the heated and cooled seat controls, the heated steering wheel controls. They put it in the screen there, which I understand why they wanted to do it. They wanted to make it look more modern and more minimalistic, but there are times where I found when I'm starting the vehicle up, it takes a second for it to come on. Now, obviously, you can go and fiddle with the settings and make it kind of program to exactly your wants and your needs and your preferences. But it's just gonna have that extra learning curve. And for those of you who prefer a more traditional setup, you're gonna have to get used to that. And then also keep in mind, if you want something like this, it is going to be fairly expensive. Now, this base version here, the xDrive40 which comes standard with all-wheel drive, and that 6-cylinder starts at $81,900. Now that is about $16,000 more than a BMW X5. Now granted, I'd say that's probably worth the cost considering how much bigger this is. You get that standard third row, which is actually meant to carry average size adults, better so versus the X5. My tester here, with the options that it has, like the M Sport package, the Shadowline package, the upgraded interior as well, the 22-inch wheels, you're looking at around $94,700. Now 94 grand sounds like a lot of money, but also keep in mind if you're gonna be looking at something like an Escalade, a Navigator, a Yukon Denali, those are also gonna be around the $90,000 to over $100,000 range, but my tester here is a little bit light on the options. Keep in mind as well, if you want the V8 powered X7, which I actually don't think you need unless you're going to be towing regularly. That's going to cost you at least $108,000, so it's about a $27,000 increase to go for the V8. And if you guys want the ultimate X7, the Alpina, that'll start at around just under $150,000, but you're looking at a vehicle that should be able to accelerate to 60 about 2 seconds faster versus this inline six, which, as you guys saw, it's certainly no slouch. But with all that said, hope you guys have enjoyed my full overview on the fully revised 2023 BMW X7. If you're also looking to see the latest cars I'm testing, be sure to follow me on Instagram at redline_reviews, like us on Facebook, and as always, guys, please keep subscribing to the Redline Reviews YouTube channel for all the latest reviews. Thank you so much for watching. I'll catch you all in the next video.